Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a marketing and strategic expert from Dubai, Kajol Bheda. Kajol, welcome to the show.
How are you doing, Ashutosh?
Kajol is the founder of Scribbled, which is an independent marketing agency with a presence in India and the UAE. So, Kajol, before we come to Scribbled, a few questions for you. You began your journey in media production in the UK and explored creative paths. How did those early explorations shape your approach to entrepreneurship?
Um, I have always loved working more than I've loved studying, I'll be honest with you.
Mm,
So even media production was a very, very active choice in knowing that
mm,
obviously while you have to be in university a lot and you have to be studying a lot, there's also more free time than other courses get to be able to work on the side. So it was very important to me that I constantly apply everything that I learn.
mm,
Um, Honestly, that's what constantly helped me. I also feel like I got to understand the client side of things before I started an agency. And
mm,
that's really, I think, that's what shaped my career the most. I worked
mm,
with some very prestigious brands in the UK. These are global brands in the UK. And it was honestly, it was a different experience. Once you understand how the client thinks, what they want, I think it's just so much easier to be on the agency side
correct.
because you feel like you can provide more.
Well said. You also worked with amazing brands like LoveGen, Harrods, and a leading OTT platform. What are some of the most valuable lessons you carried forward from these roles into building Scribbled?
Honestly, one thing that I tell my juniors now and I tell my team now, this is something that all of my bosses at all these three places have told me.
Mm,
Figure it out.
mm,
Like nothing is impossible, nothing is not doable.
yeah.
It's going to be extremely simple to figure it
Mm,
out. If you put your brain to it, you're going to be able to do it.
correct.
And honestly, that made all the difference for me. I still don't feel like I would never take no for an answer. I would never just stop because I don't have a solution. I will find one.
Mm,
So I feel like it made me persevere more in general.
mm. And the pandemic, which was a turning point for many careers, you transformed that, something that could have been a setback into an opportunity to launch Scribbled. Tell me about this journey.
Honestly, Ashutosh, if I were to be honest with you, I did not see that coming because
Mm,
my idea was once I come back from the UK, I'm going to
mhm,
get some experience here, and when I'm 30, I'm going to start a company. And this was 7 years before I turned 30.
mm,
So I was too young to like even think of starting my own company. I had only 3 jobs worth of experience, and that to like a year at each of them at the max because I kept moving so much.
mm,
Uh, and before which I had done like 10 to 13 odd internships. I
mm,
I did every internship I could find. I just wanted learning experience
mm,
and relevant to my field, obviously. Uh, but the problem, I think, the problem started coming up when I just realized I was so lazy through the pandemic, because at least through the first 2 months, which was so unlike me. I
mm,
love waking up in the morning. I love working. I love doing all of those things. So when I didn't get to do all of that, this one morning, I literally just woke up and I said, you know what, nothing doing. I am going to get back into work. And
mm,
if there's no opportunities out there, which there weren't, I've applied to some of the leading agencies in India because that's exactly what I wanted to do. None of them were accepting applicants. And yeah, then I just woke up one day and I was like, I am going to change things for myself. So
mm.
this was 2 months into the first wave, I think, of COVID in India. And I started Scribbled then. I literally started with one intern, and that's about it, and one client.
Oh, amazing. So let's now talk about Scribbled. Scribbled was launched as a strategy first agency.
Yeah.
What does strategy first mean to you in practice when you talk to your clients?
I think the difference of strategy first has evolved so much since when I first started. Because when I first started, the market was not even close to as saturated as it is today
Mm,
online, just for
mm,
attention.
mm,
People were not constantly competing for attention, and anyone that produced good content got decent eyeballs.
mm,
Today, that's very different.
mm.
Today, everyone that comes to us, directly or indirectly, their brief translate to any client that comes to us. Their brief
Yeah.
always translates to, we want more attention than our competitors get.
Mm,
How do we do this?
mm,
And that in itself, I think when I now say strategy first, I'm always talking about the bid for attention. I'm always talking about what the brand can do differently to stand out, what the brand can, create as its own IP to, nurture their community. That's essentially what it means today.
mm, mm.
But yeah, I mean, if you ask me next year, there could probably be a different answer.
Sure. And then somewhere you decided to segue into marketing as well.
Yeah, I wanted to say we didn't segue into marketing. We were always in marketing.
Okay.
That was our goal from day one. From my first job to my third job, I've always been in marketing, and
Hmm.
obviously having an agency, we definitely were, I would say, strategy first marketing agency.
Okay. Understand. And but in increasingly crowded market space, what makes Scribble's approach so unique?
Honestly, it's the personal touch.
Hmm.
Like most of our clients today, our USP is that our team will always feel like an extension of their brand.
Mm,
Like I really pride myself on the relations that we have with our clients, with that my team has with their clients.
mm,
It's great. So that personal touch, I think, often lacks when you go to other when you work with other agencies. Obviously, they're also great in their own way, but I think that's what we've been able to build extremely well.
mm. And how has the marketing landscape changed or evolved since you launched in 2020?
I have so much to say about this. I think we're going to end up speaking only about this in the podcast if I actually honestly answer this question,
Hmm.
because every 3 to 6 months there's something new in marketing and
Correct.
there's something new to catch up to. Like
Correct.
there are honestly days where I, wish I was in another industry. I was like, I wish I was an author, or I wish I was, in automobiles, because then
Hmm.
it automatically, the rate of change slows down drastically.
Hmm.
Obviously your depth of study increases, but I do sometimes envy the other side, because when everything is constantly changing, for you to
Hmm.
keep up is it's a sport, and it's a sport that unfortunately not a lot of people are good at. And if you sleep a wink on, like, through the journey, it's you're basically out of the game.
Hmm.
So I would say, in terms of how it's evolved, uh, there's something new happening all the time, and you
Hmm.
have to keep up, you have to learn, you have to upskill yourself. And I think we saw, a brink of this during COVID, when upskilling became such a big thing. Obviously, there were two factors that I want to say contributed to it. Number one was the edutainment and the edutech sector. And number two was that people really started realizing that if they, everything, you could work from home, everything became a lot easier in
Hmm.
that sense. So people realize the more skills you have, the more flexibility you're going to have as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that, I think that switch is, it's really helped marketing evolve the way it has. And this
Hmm.
field is just, I mean, I don't see how it's going to get any smaller. Marketing spends are getting bigger by the
Hmm.
day.
Hmm.
People have more and more money to spend on marketing. They have more intent to spend for attention, which is not a bad thing in itself. Obviously, it sounds
Hmm.
bad when you say that they
Correct.
want to spend for attention, but you're
Correct.
literally just trying to make a place for your product, because no one listens to a brand anymore. They
Correct.
need the brand to have a very human voice.
Absolutely. Well said. But then, Kajol, with AI and automation becoming bigger and bigger in marketing, where do you see the human's touch still being irreplaceable?
AI will take away your job if what you do is repeatable.
Hmm.
So, if you're literally doing the same mundane task day on day, and it doesn't need any independent thinking or creativity, it's going to take your job away, yes.
Hmm.
Although, if that's not what you do, and what you do requires your own insight, your own thought, it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to take your job away. And a lot of what we do requires our thought because there are very real problem statements that we deal with that differ from client to client. Now, obviously, on the surface level, all of them come to us with a very basic brief.
Mm-hmm.
But there are, we have a way of mining, information from them to
Mm-hmm.
understand what their real problem is. Now, someone's problem, it's an entire spectrum. It could differ from over the last year. I have been sick and I have not been able to get as many leads as I wanted. And this is probably for like a homegrown brand, the founders directly speaking to us, or it could be an MNC
Mm-hmm.
that is literally coming to us with the problem statement that our competitor has doubled their budgets and we don't have that much to spend. But we understand that virality can also cause,
Mm-hmm.
that it can also get us the eyeballs that we want.
Mm-hmm.
So the brief could entirely differ.
Correct.
Um, I don't think AI would be able to translate that as easily because it doesn't understand the human emotions of you and I. I can
Mm-hmm.
maybe say three things that you think that you and I both will think are relatable to some extent. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like, as an Indian, just as an Indian, I won't talk about the market in Dubai here right now because that's very different. But as an Indian, most people have some nostalgic, uh,
Associations.
association,
Correct.
memory with
Yeah.
Parle G and chai. That is something AI cannot replace.
Mm-hmm.
Creating content around that is something AI cannot replace.
Correct.
Creating that kind of content around festivals, because festivals is literally like, people joke about how it's such a stressful time in Indian homes. There's
Mm-hmm.
always fights, there's always so much ruckus around it.
Mm-hmm.
The real human emotion on which we build all of this content is
Yeah.
something AI cannot replace.
What a great response. Thank you. But there's another aspect of technology, which is in a digital first world. How do you, as a marketer, manage to keep campaigns authentic and relatable to audiences?
That's becoming tougher by the day because the audience pool that you have to deal with is very large
Mm-hmm.
for a campaign. So, unless there's a larger force binding them together or bringing them together like a festival, um, it is difficult to ensure that everyone finds relatability in it.
Mm-hmm.
Although there are some things that have proven to like be entertaining for everyone, like social media, Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
uh, there are times where you do it through forms like that, and these are just maybe two or three examples that I've given you, but there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
You can do it through the forms that everyone finds in their day to day. And I think it's just a lot easier to communicate with a larger audience then.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you're digital first, it's easier to ensure that everyone gets the same message. Although
Right.
I will tell you something, as opposed to print, because print used to go to, like, if I had an opinion, I could put it on print and that would
Mm-hmm.
go to the entire audience and they would not be able to express their opinion back to me. Today,
Mm-hmm.
that has changed. So everyone opines on everything.
Correct.
That would also change, I would say, the future course of action for us. If we had three stages of a campaign planned and the audience reacts a certain way to, and maybe in a way that we didn't expect to phase A, phase, B and C would entirely change for us.
Mm. What a great response. And as you were talking, I was thinking, I started my life in 1979 after business school. And I often used to say everyone has a view on marketing and
Yeah.
everyone has a view on on an advertisement. And you're telling me the same thing almost 45 years later. Nothing
Yeah,
seems to have changed. That's reassuring. Wonderful. Uh,
definitely.
Kajol, moving on, you have worked earlier with brands in the UK. Now you've worked with brands like Amazon Prime and Nika. What are some challenges you face when you work with big clients, and how do you manage to overcome them?
Um, Challenges, I wouldn't say there are too many challenges because with a
Mm,
bigger brand, there's always a clearer brief.
correct.
There is always their want uh, from us or what they need from us is very clear.
Mm,
And that we set in stone from day one. It's cemented from the first brief.
mm,
So I wouldn't say that's a challenge per se. But I think when you work with larger brands, the expectation from you becomes that what you're doing for them, you can do for like every other brand that you work with, which is
Mm,
not always possible because everyone has a different brand and everyone has a different path that we unfortunately have to follow.
mm,
There's also, unfortunately, the reality of it, right? Like a lot of what we do is just bursting people's bubbles. Like I think the hope that I have for Scribbled, my team bursts for me saying, "Hey, look, this is
correct.
unfortunately the path that we have to follow, and maybe you're
Mm,
aiming too high."
yeah,
But there's nothing wrong with that. Now, the thing is,
absolutely.
when you have to say that to a client,
Mm,
that's always twice as difficult.
absolutely.
Working with a larger brand, in my opinion, has no cons, at least not ones we faced so far, except maybe payments are late sometimes, but they will never defer on payments.
Mm,
So, honestly, I can't really say anything bad.
mm,
You know,
mm,
someone not deferring on payments and marketing is already a very large win in itself.
mm. Very interesting. And if you were to compare one of these big brands versus a lot of the emerging ones, are there any differences in terms of your brief, in terms of working with your clients?
Do you mean emerging startups or founder first brands?
Either, either. I mean, they're not these massive brands with huge marketing teams.
Yeah, I'll talk about brands that are maybe founder driven or maybe smaller brands. I think they get confused a lot and they get there's always the idea of, oh, we can do better,
Hmm.
because there's lack of, I want to say proven content history with them. There
Hmm.
is very little that, our creativity automatically and drastically reduces when we're working with a founder driven brand. And that's not
Hmm.
necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think, all that glitters then is gold.
Hmm.
And they want to go for all that glitters. So
Hmm.
our strategy keeps changing very often. And one con that I will tell you that we used to face, at least in the past, and now we've very strictly started addressing this and said that this is not something that we're going to do,
Hmm.
is if the client wants us to switch our strategy every single month, that is something where we kind of put our foot down and we say this is not something that we're going to do, and maybe you can find another agency that suits you and could potentially do this better.
Hmm. Very interesting. Kajal, what role does consumer insight play in shaping your strategies? And what trends in consumer engagement excite you the most right now?
There's so many. How do I even speak about them? Let me tell you about consumer insight. So
Hmm.
there's something that we do for our clients called a sentiment analysis, which means that we try and study what this client does. Now, obviously, in terms of primary research, you can't actually go up to them and ask them, but you can monitor their behavior and study it on
Hmm.
social media,
Hmm.
which gives you an idea, and especially of how they're engaging with your brand and competitor brands, which gives you an idea of what they like, what they dislike. And unfortunately, a lot of this is manual. So whether I want to study their affinity to their affinity to purchase more when there's discounts, or purchase more when we have an engaging activity going on, or participate in a giveaway, all of that I think now is very different, and you need to study why why a consumer would even interact with you. So that
Hmm.
sentiment analysis is something that we do for a
Yeah.
lot of our clients.
Hmm.
Um, to answer the latter part of your question, there are a lot of trends today. Like, one trend, it's actually called memification. So that actually means how everything's just become relatable. Everything has to be
Hmm.
said in like maybe two or three sentences. And if it's relatable, witty, and it's short, it automatically becomes a meme. Uh,
Hmm.
so that I think is a very, very large trend that's ongoing currently and has been going for the last few years. Another thing is one trend I'm not a very large fan of, which I think is contributing to our reducing attention spans, is the hook first strategy. If you
Hmm.
have a great hook, it's going to, attract at least 10 new people. Then whether they end
Hmm.
up watching the rest of the video or not
Yeah.
is not on you. But it needs to have a great hook. There are some people that do it well. I'm not
Hmm.
gonna lie, but there are some people that literally just do it for attention, and I'm not
Hmm.
very like, fan of that.
Well said. I have time for two more questions for you. Your team is predominantly female, which is rare, in the marketing industry. Was that intentional or did it evolve naturally?
Not really. It wasn't intentional at all. Although I will tell you, when I started out, I had a very, very hard time finding a job. And I was constantly made to feel by the people that I was applying to that it was because of my gender.
Wow.
Um, And there are two such examples that I will tell you about. There was one agency in Malad in Mumbai that I interviewed with. They are a prominent name. And I went there for an interview and you know, they promised me a great package. And this is when I'd just come back from the UK. They
Mhm.
promised me a great package and they said, you know what, this is absolutely perfect. We'll figure out your starting date and all of that. And we were just about to kind of shake on it before they sent me the offer letter. And then they go like, but the hours are really, really long. So we feel like a man would just be better suited for them.
Wow. Mm.
So let us, kind of think about it and come back to you.
Mm.
And I still joke about it, and there are so many platforms on which I've said I genuinely do work longer hours than most
Correct.
men.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
And it just the disparity drove me nuts. And not just that, there were a couple more instances where, I saw a man sitting next to me waiting for the interview, waiting for the same interview that we've both been called in for. And it just I started seeing a pattern. And where everything would go great, I had the perfect experience, the interview went great, they reached out to me saying, hey, the interview has gone fabulously well. A lot of them I'm still in touch with, but unfortunately they were asked to go a different take a
Amazing.
different route.
Yeah.
So that I want to say is it was a little sad to me, but funnily enough, that did not contribute to why we had a female first team. That just kind of organically happened. We don't
Mm.
anymore though.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
now I want to say it's pretty equal. But yeah, initially for the first 2 years, anytime we had like one or two men in the office, it was a very big deal because we said,
Mm.
wow, this is a big change for us.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And my last question for you, Kajol. You have now expanded into the UAE, which is a pretty bold step
Yeah,
because UAE market I know very well, and it's not an easy market.
it's not.
What were some of the biggest considerations in deciding to go international, and what next for you?
Honestly, so much. But one very large thing that motivated me to go to the UAE, and this was, I think, the biggest factor of them all, is we already had quite a lot of, like, two actually. One, we already had quite a lot of demand from here, where people reached out to us constantly. We were in the pitch stage, but right at the last minute, they would be like, you know what, we'd prefer if you had a presence here. So let's not go ahead with it right now.
Mm.
And we're working with the maybe two or three brands that we did speak to then that didn't work with us because we didn't have a presence here. So we ended up working with them. Number two is a lot of Indian brands are now selling in the UAE,
Mm.
which automatically makes it the perfect market for us
Mm.
because we've already understood their audience in India and we've understood their brand language.
Mm.
So if we have to now do that in the UAE, that's not like rocket science.
Mm.
Although understanding, like when we initially set up here, the first 6 months literally just went in understanding the audience because that is so
Mm.
difficult. You're
Mm.
only dealing with expats. Now, their feelings, their emotions, like in India, you don't market when there's a very large political concern or when there's a national concern as a
Mm.
whole for the country. Now, unfortunately, because there are people from all different parts of the world here, what's happening in the entire world also affects them. It
Correct.
also affects where what their mood is like, their purchasing power, so many different things. So it's just a very complicated market to understand and
Correct.
adapt.
Correct.
uh, but yeah, it's been very rewarding, touch wood. I've been extremely happy about how rewarding it's been. The clients here are extremely sweet. The brands here are amazing. They're all about creativity. So yeah, that's been great.
Fascinating. But on that note, Kajol, I just want to say what a fascinating conversation this has been with you. Thank you for talking to me about your amazing journey. I just love the way you told me, figure it out. It's such a powerful set of three words, which I wish many, many more people were able to figure out in their own lives. Thank you for talking to me about Scribbled and giving us such amazing insights into marketing, branding, and consumer. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you. Great speaking to you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.